Hello, folks. Can you hear us? Thank you for joining us today at the Printavo webinar. My name is Nick. I'm on the sales team. I'm going to introduce everybody real quick here. We got Stephen Farag from Campus Inc. in Champaign-Urbana. We got Luke Gardner out in Chicago. He is Printavo's content manager. And I'm sure you guys all know Bruce Ackerman, Printavo's CEO and founder. I'm looking at the chat here. We got all kinds of states. What do we got? California, Arkansas, Illinois, Massachusetts, Alaska, Iowa, Tennessee, Washington, Arizona. We got the whole country represented here. I'll tell you what we'll talk about today. We're going to talk about COVID-19 preparation, our guide. We're going to be talking with some shop owners and some other guests. It looks like people are Lake Phillip.
Can you hold on one sec? Sorry, we just got a slight echo. I'm just going to mute. You know what? Hold on one sec. Hello, testing. Okay, no, I don't. Luke, can you say something real quick?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Okay, that works. Hey, Steven, can you say hi?
What's up, everybody?
All right, cool. Nick, can you say something?
Yep, I figured out that echo.
Oh, perfect. No echo. All right. Hey, we got really Germany in there too.
Voice, we got all kinds of people here. We got Pennsylvania, Germany, folks. Florida, Tennessee, Utah, North Carolina, Rhode Island, Alabama, Oregon, Reno. Wow. It's I think we've got every state. Is there any state we don't have? UK. There's the UK. That's great. Waiting for folks to funnel in. How's everybody's experience with the software? Looking good. A lot of folks in the chat. Some people are changing their avatar. Love to see that. Someone up in the chat earlier said the avatars all look like germs from Dr. Mario. That's true. That's funny. Cool. What else? You guys want to head into the guide, into talking about it?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's get started.
Cool.
Hi, Ellie. Right. Neighbors.
All right, guys. So we are really excited to be able to help share a lot of resources that we've been compiling. We are doing we're spending a lot of time working with a lot of different shops, being able to learn, being able to soak up as much information from different people as possible in this space. Today, we've got a couple different speakers that we're going to have join in. I'm going to quickly, Nick, I'm going to hold you off here for a second. Thanks, Nick, for being able to intro from here. We've got a couple shop owners and how they're pushing through this and some of the ideas that they have that I'm really excited about sharing. We've also got a lot of research that Luke has done, especially on the legal end and the environment and just being able to position your business and strategize, as this is something we've never really experienced before. For those that are older, that have gone through 08, 09 type of crises, more recession-based events, this is semi-similar, although very compressed into such a short amount of time, which has made it very, very unique. So what we want to do today is help provide as much information as possible to you guys to be able to get you guys in a point to hopefully that we can come out in 6 months and be able to look at this in the rearview mirror. So we're really excited about that too. And then lastly, we've got Wendy Davids, who is an HR professional. She's someone that we actually work closely at Printavo to help on the HR side. Very knowledgeable. She runs a firm called BHRS Partners, which if you do need HR assistance, she'll be available to after. But she's able to provide a lot of guidance for shops around different options and things that are happening and just to make sure to stay compliant. And then tips that she's seeing as her phone's also been blowing up like crazy. So we are really excited to provide this. We've got almost 500 shops here. So thank you guys so much for being able to spend some time with us today. And hopefully we can be of help. So we're going to do this as much as we possibly can as more information develops. I'm sorry. And as the environment is changing fairly quickly, we feel that that's very important.
Oh, he's muted.
I think you're muted, Bruce. Nah, I'm Bruce.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Perfect.
now.
Oh, sorry about that. So hopefully you guys will find that helpful, and ask questions that you've got and put them into the chat. We'd love to be able to help and point you guys in the right direction. As everybody knows, this literally feels like some sort of Hollywood contagion-based movie set. I mean, I feel like this is very unreal. Almost 2 weeks ago, everybody was sailing, everybody's talking about growth, and many of us have turned into survival mode to be able to sustain this and really just reduce costs as much as possible here. So Luke has spent a lot of time. If you guys click the blog post below, you'll be able to see the full, essentially, transcript from this webinar. There's a couple high-level premise that we're seeing here. The biggest thing that the president actually said, I believe it was yesterday, is that recession is most likely going to happen because of such a severe impact to the macroeconomic environment. My personal impression is that that's hopefully the minimum, but I expect potentially more because of the sheer amount of businesses and sales that's completely grinded to a halt. Small business, large business is all the same at this point. I think the other thing that we want to take into account is that this is, to set expectations correctly, going to last 4 months. We're starting to see that China is coming up and has been able to level out the number of new viruses that are coming, and that was about 2 months. But they had to literally, shut down and quarantine full areas. The other big thing before we hop in is the new Senate bill that was just passed. The Senate is working through on passing a whole chunk of different stimuli, I guess, to help small businesses be able to sustain this. The first one that did go into action and that was signed is paid leave. Paid leave is now helped. If the employee is sick, paid leave will be covered by the government, but it is through tax credits. It is not through cash. So that's the trick here. So if you actually have the cash on hand, then you will get a tax credit later. But if you don't, then you don't at all. I think the only positive thing here is that we're hoping that this doesn't a forever event and that we will make it through here. Now, I'm going to head on into let you, Luke, go through down payments to go through that one. I think the overall premise that you guys are going to see here is that cash is absolutely king. So whether you are, bootstrapping and it's been a family-owned business, or you took external funding, cash is absolutely king to be able to reduce your burn, to be able to push through an event like this. Luke, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So bouncing right off what Bruce said, as we all know, cash is king. That's why we are really, really advocating for a 100% down payment policy for all orders going forward. This is a really uncertain time. You really need to secure that cash and just implement this policy immediately. You don't need to blast your customers with an email announcing that this is what you're doing. What you really need to do is just implement it as like a solid part of your business going forward. You can change the terms and conditions right in Printavo if you need to. You can change the terms and conditions in whatever shop management software you use. I really recommend doing that today. That may be a difficult change. That may be a difficult conversation with certain customers, but really, honestly, I think that's like that's a survival tactic, and it will work.
On that, Luke, what we just did is we made a status in Printavo that basically said prepayment required to start your order. We usually were, we'd given terms and stuff. In that status change, we just said, hey, due to recent, changes, we're going to need to require everything on front. We appreciate you understanding. If you have questions, reach out. And people have been so understanding about it. And anyone that has asked questions or challenged it, I've just been like, hey, we've had orders get pulled out from underneath us, and we just can't do that right now. I need to make sure I've got cash to pay my staff. So with that, we're going to need your money. So you can do that in a status change on Printavo. Nice tool, Bruce.
Thank you. So that's huge. Any other points on that one, Luke?
I really think that's it. This is just an existential policy to put in now. This is something that will keep your customers coming back. They expect to pay for a couch just like they do for anything else. T-shirts aren't any different. I know it's a hard time to do that, but this is the right thing to do. So that's really it. Just want to
I
hammer
see some comments around doing that for schools. Stephen, you work heavily with schools. Are you just enforcing that with them too?
I've actually reached out to purchasing at the university. So we do tons of POs, and we just let them know the situation, and they actually got things paid within a day, which was awesome, or just a proof of payment. But I basically contacted the purchasing department and said, hey, these orders are still going through. I just need to protect myself as a small business. What can you do? I think, what we'll hear as the underlying theme today is communication is key. So, communicating with those payable offices and saying, how quickly can you get me a check? What can you do there? And people have been awesome and forthcoming. So, yeah.
It's huge. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing to realize is that the schools do have the money. So, being able to communicate that, like Stephen mentioned, I think is absolutely crucial. Maybe even visiting them. Did you actually go there, or did you just give them a call, or?
I just went online. I searched for because they kind of use an automated system, but I searched their directory for their directors, and I shot them an email and said, look, these are some massive orders. Could you guys help us out? Just, I know we normally have 60-day terms or whatever, but we would really appreciate it. And they're like, yeah, because their budget's set for the year, so they were really kind about it.
That's awesome. So definitely try that, guys. Work directly with them, be able to communicate. Obviously, they understand the environment that's going on, and be able to enact that ASAP. And if you have already been doing that, which I see some of you guys have, that's great, and keep pushing through with that. The second area that we wanted to go through here is loans, financing, and relationships. So number one, as we said before, cash is king. It's going to be extremely important over the next 3 to 6 months to have a very, very strict watch and measure on the cash that's spent. Do everything that you can to absolutely preserve the cash that you have, and expect for the worst over the next 3 to 6 months. We are personally projecting half of revenue at Printavo. So how do we completely change our growth trajectory to be able to cut and cut and cut and make sure to push back everything, working with our landlord? There's a bunch of stuff that we're going to go into there as well. Equipment. I'm sure that there's equipment dealers in here as well. Larger capital expenses, if you can push it back, absolutely do not make any sort of large contractual purchases right now. Make sure, again, to push it off. This goes right under the line with cash is king. Used equipment, if if things break or anything like that, used equipment is going to be there. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for some, businesses are going to go out of business during this time. And so there will be liquidation around equipment. Some of the forums are Digitsmith, and then on Facebook, there's a couple groups for used screen printing equipment as well. So again, large expenditures, definitely put on pause. Small investments. There's definitely a lot of really great small investments, and I'm loving to see a lot of these, which is even down to I see a lot of cleaning and organization around the business and focusing on what you guys are able to do with the team to be able to keep them busy. Is there anything, Stephen, that you guys have done in that area?
As far as the team goes, we've had to make, some cutbacks and things like that, but I've been giving everyone just resources. I bought books for a lot of people that, I want to retain. And when we're cutting hours, just being like, hey, this could be a good book for you to read. Hey, maybe you could try this out. I know with our students, we've been sending them lots of different things, tutorial wise and things like that. So I think it's keep spirits high and get creative. We're all in this together, and that has to be the echoing message in everyone's business. So
Absolutely. That's a huge point. So line of credit, a lot of people have been talking about this with the SBA, Small Business Administration. This is at least for the U.S. as unfortunately, we're not very familiar with international law. But for U.S.-based businesses, your best course of action if you need a credit line is to go to the bank that you work with currently. So wherever you're storing your money, your checking, your savings, and so on for the business, go directly to the person that you work with. If you don't have a direct relationship with a person, go over there to their business department. You'll be able to find a VP, a rep that's there at the business, and they can work with you. What's really good about that is they will be able to help expedite any sort of credit line and be able to get you access to cash. Now, they're going to need to be able to see, and it's going to take time to go through and be able to make an approval. But this is something that you should actually have, have in your back pocket to, in case that you need it, be able to draw from. Now, the one thing that's really important to note is, it's very dependent on your business and size and where you're at and profitability. Usually they take tax years. The other thing to note is that the banks could pull their money within a 30 days notice. So if you do draw on that line and you keep it in a bank account, again, it's emergency situations because they absolutely could pull from it. Some people ask, can you go directly through SBA? Yes, absolutely you can. But what I found is that if you go to your bank will actually apply and get you the SBA approval for you. Plus, they can help lend you money as well. So it can double up. So that can absolutely be able to help you guys. Now, there are some laws that are being worked on to being passed that have not gone through yet to provide a massive stimulus. I mean, there's numbers being tossed of 750 million to billion to $1 trillion worth of stimulus for a lot of SMBs, small, medium-sized businesses, to be able to help us be able to push through this. So definitely look forward to that, and we will post updates as they come, as of course everything is changing on a daily basis.
On the bank note, Bruce, I met with my banker a couple days ago. He looked at my balance sheet, all that stuff, and he said, if we don't have to go, God forbid something were to happen and we would drastically need to borrow money. He said he would first try to do it internally before necessarily going to SBA, because there are a lot of rules and regulations, and sometimes they are hard to deal with. They require a lot more reporting. It might be a little bit more intense if your bank can just do it for you. The other thing that my banker told me about was that he could actually give us a line of credit on some of our receivables if we were to share our receivables with him and show him what those look like. And those are, there are some tools out there, like Stripe will even do it for you. QuickBooks will even do it for you. Credit Key, I think, is another one that will actually get you money now if you need it drastically quick on your receivables. Might be better to go local if you can, because they might be charging obviously a higher interest rate or something like that. And so, let's just think this isn't just our industry. There's going to be a lot of other businesses going that route. But again, going to talk to your banker as soon as possible, just to start figuring out what your options are going to be. And the one positive thing that my banker said is, when this is all over, people are still going to need T-shirts. And that's why he said, we need to focus on weathering the storm, not necessarily inventing new ways to sell right now, but let's figure out what it's going to take to weather it. So.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephen. The other thing to note is that I wouldn't necessarily depend and expect on the second bill passing to be a direct check per se. It's still unclear if these are more credit-based or check-based. So, I would almost just forget about it until something more concrete happens. But absolutely reach out to your bank today and either go in or schedule a time to chat with them to be able to work with them, because they want to lend you money. The next thing to note is, I'm sure you guys saw pieces about the IRS. the IRS is extending the date that you can pay them tax payments. So if you do owe taxes from 2019, you can't extend that. The thing is, that's to July 15. The thing is that's not the filing date. So make sure that your taxes are filed on time. It's just the tax that the dollar amount that you owed is pushed back until July 15. So if you do need more time, you can always have your CPA, though, extend it. So we did. So it'll be into September, as he's been slammed. And so he pushed that for us. So absolutely work with a certified public accountant, a CPA, to be able to handle that for you. Now, we talked about bankers. So anybody that's lending you money that you owe payments on, we've seen this work actually fairly well, to schedule a meeting and explain them your situation, explain them what's going on, how you're really struggling through this, and is there anything you could do, something like make just interest payments for the next 3 months. Ask a few times if they're a bit reluctant. A lot of the larger banks, if you are working with them, will work with you on that, because they'd rather have that than a complete default and uncertainty on that end. So I have been seeing this work. And you can also use this to be able to reach out to any other large bills. Things like rent is another great example, to be able to chat with your landlord. I was actually chatting with a few folks this morning who are doing this and are going to really, really be able to lean on them for help, as you know, your rent or lease could be fairly expensive depending on your space. So hopefully you guys have a friendly relationship with your landlord and didn't piss him off too much. So that's rent abatement. That's what that's called. So if you see rent abatement, that's what is they're letting you get away with not paying rent for X amount of months. Ask for 3, let them maybe bring you down to 2, settle, and then move on. So from there too, I know we've got a couple people out from Sanmar and a couple others. Chat with these guys, chat with your partners, ask them what you can do. If you have payables that you owe, anything that you can do. I know Sanmar's going to poke me in for this, but pricing, anything that can be done that you guys can reach out to help. A lot of these guys are absolutely more than willing to help. I know I've seen a bunch of emails. I saw Sanmar's come in either today or yesterday. Monty Mims from Sanmar is actually here. He's Monty Mims at sanmar.com. So he can absolutely be able to help. They're really, really helpful people. And I know SNS has sent an email out as well. So be able to reach out, whatever, you've got a couple flexible points of payables if you owe on net terms with them, on price on garments, whatever ideas that they may have. Again, they're working with a lot of shops and they're in the same space, right? So they want to see you survive too. So definitely lean on that as well. Okay, the next piece that we wanted to cover here is online stores. So, and this is perfect. We've got Mr. E-commerce in the building. So online stores has been an interesting way to help promote and be able to bring some cash in. We've seen a couple ways that this is being done, and Stephen, I'm going to lean on you here heavily too. The first is remember that although the schools are closed, they are still wanting to create a community with their students. I was talking to a college board member the other night, and they're wanting to, for example, send out swag to all their students to be able to help still create that community. So there's definitely an opportunity to be able to ask them how you can be able to help. The other one is pitching, running company stores. So think about it like this. Restaurants are closing. They need help. They could use fundraisers. They could use being able to help to sell swag. So many of these guys have horrible e-commerce experiences that you can come in with something really powerful. Stephen, I know you work closely with the sororities and Greek institutions too. Is there anything that you're doing in particular to share?
Yeah. So, and I've piggybacked off of, people like Brett and who've just done a really good job being in front of it. But one thing that we decided to do is free shipping for any of our online stores. So A lot of the online stores we run are for events that are happening in person, and we usually do bulk pickup. But what we did is we blasted out all the customers that had purchased and said, hey, we'll ship your item to you for free. And actually, like, it saved most of them. And most customers were actually pretty cool about it. And we're just kind of saying, hey, let's still celebrate whatever you're celebrating. We'll ship it directly to you. I think it might cost me a couple $1,000s in shipping, but those are orders that are not canceling. We also sent out emails to all of our customers letting them know, hey, you can run an online store with zero startup cost, zero risk, and we'll donate a certain amount to whatever fundraiser you want. I know the Chicago Hospitality Group, there's a shop in Chicago that just put one out, and it kind of went so viral. I think they did over like 60 grand in revenue in these shirts that we're going to go to hospitality workers in Chicago. And I think that happened in a couple of days. So those causes don't have to be massive like Chicago. They can be just small in your town. I've been reaching out to people in the city and just talking to people and seeing what we can do. Because really at this point, if we have to make a little less to print, that's okay. And if anything, maybe it's a good opportunity to leverage, online stores or something that you're good at. I think there's a trial for merch, not touting it, but we use that a ton. And there's other tools out there that you could use, but you don't have to necessarily turn down orders. Another thing that we did is any of our big bulk orders for the spring, we reached out to them and said, even though you've placed a bulk order, I'll do shipping at cost for you guys if you still want to send them to whoever your members are. So there's things you can do to get creative. And, I think because we're all in our own communities, you can really get on the ground floor and talk to the mayor, community leaders, and see what opportunities there are. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. We've been able to save quite a few. And even if we're going to sell less shirts, that's okay. Right. So the minimums are not as stringent now, per se. So
are there any things on the fundraiser front that you guys have found to work? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we just sent something out now, and we've got a couple things in the works. But to be able to tell, an organization, hey, you can donate to anything, just set up an online store and we'll do $5 or $10 per shirt, sell the shirt for $20 or something like that. So I think it's just like get the communication out there. There is a huge support small business movement going on, which is amazing. And you need to ride that wave, no different than the restaurants and the bars and all that stuff as well. So be there with them in the trenches is I think, the message.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. We lost your video, Stephen. It might just be your internet, but I'll let you join back in. So that's a huge point with the stores. Again, there's so many ways to do it. We are actually spending a lot of time now investing in building out Printavo merch as well. There are plenty of solutions out there that you can use. You can even go something like Shopify just to get going. So definitely look into that as far as how that can help. We saw New Duds actually created a really cool store last night to be able to help fundraise for restaurants. And so, I'm sorry, that was Northeast Apparel's fundraising for restaurants. And they're doing some really great work there with restaurants and all their different logos to help support them too. So big opportunity there. Luke, did you want to jump into terms?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Yeah, so I think terms and conditions, not a fun thing to write, not a fun thing to read, but this is the time to change them. I think now you need to put upfront, maybe in the first line even, charge for order cancellations if the work is done. You need to protect your cash flow. You need to protect your shop. You need to protect your business now. I think Mike from Merch Monster has really great terms and conditions that Bruce just dropped in the chat there. They're very clear. They're very simple. But the goal really here is to make sure that once you ship it, the deadlines are out of your hands now too, because we saw some rumblings in the chat about like maybe FedEx won't be going. And I mean, that is realistic at this point. Who knows? So I think that's another thing to add. But I think one thing to keep in mind right now is that it's really, really important to keep customers that are in good standing and that represent a big part of your revenue to basically keep them in the family, to take care of them, to be lenient with them, to work with them, because they are definitely hurting too. Everyone's in a crisis right now. And I think that, you'll always remember the way that someone treated you when you were in a crisis. So you want to spread that mutual aid around right now if you can. But ultimately, your terms and conditions need to protect you, your employees, your business, your cash flow. And now's the time to alter them. So it's a great, it's a great time to do it.
Yeah, great points, Luke. I want to give a quick shout out. I'm just reading through the comments. There's some guys saying that Sanmar helped with returning a canceled order to helping bring back shirts. I know I've seen a lot of people that are stuck on a bunch of garments. So shouts out to those guys for being on the printer's side. And then I see another shop here got rent abatement for 3 months. Mike Cannon was able to push back to next July. So these things absolutely work.
Yeah.
These aren't just like ideas, and absolutely you can pull back. Now I see that the finance leasing is a bit tough for some folks to be able to work with them. I have seen that though from a lot of sometimes the smaller banks who have more on the line. But again, if you don't and you are working with a larger company, they will absolutely work with you, and especially if you have a good personal relationship with them. I think this all part of this idea of relationships is coming back and more again of if you guys are there, you're present, you're working with your reps, it's not just kind of one way of them trying to sell you or you trying to sell them, but have a good, strong personal connection. In times like this, those are always things that you can lean on because everybody's helping each other. And part of that is being at the trade shows and going to meet them and, just giving them a call and asking how things are going, right, and asking about that. So those are really great. I think the other thing here, too, is on the leadership and management front. So work with, you guys, most of you guys are owners in here. Again, if you're having to protect cash, that may look at a pay cut. Now, we had Mike Mikalowicz last year on from Profit First, whose belief is that you guys are the most important employee for the business, and so you should be paid first. Again, my personal feeling is that, hey, also I have some really amazing people that I don't want to ever let go. So, I'd rather do that before that I have to let anybody go. So you can meet with the team. We're going to be talking a little bit about furloughs versus hiring very shortly with Wendy Davids, our HR professional, coming in about 6 minutes here. And there's a management aspect here of you're leading the ship still that's very important, and we're going to talk about that soon here too. And Justin Lawrence, I know, sent out a really great, he's going to be on in about 30 minutes. He sent out a really great email to the team just so that the team fully understands the difficulties that he's in. The last point that I want to talk about here is on the marketing front and a couple things that you can do. Again, I'm not fully sure this is the best time for sales emails. It feels a little bit not super ideal of timing, but I've seen a lot of emails around, we're here for you. I've seen a little bit poking fun at the amount of toilet paper that's been bought, right? And using that to get people to open emails and be excited and just making sure to stay in front of them. I've seen campaigns around just being sanitary and how all shirts were sanitized by a heated dryer. And so I think there's some playful ways that you guys can use that to be able to work with your customers and just stay present for when this does swing around, that you guys are there. I think the last thing is, again, this goes right off the relationships, but just make sure to keep checking in. I'm trying to spend 4 or 5 calls a day just reaching out to shops and just calling them for 20, 30 minutes just to be able to have a chat. How are you guys doing? How are things going? Anything that I can be able to help offer assistance, I definitely recommend to do the same. Things that you can do with your partners as well. So handwritten notes, anything again that creates that personal touch will be really, really crucial. So with that said, anything else, Stephen, I'm missing there before we have Wendy join us?
No, I think as this is new to me. I mean, I've only been in business for 5 years, so this is the most drastic thing. It comes down to your family first, yourself, your business, and the message that I've been hearing is, you want to make sure that you have a business when this is over.
Bingo.
Right? That's what's resonated with me the most is when this is all over, whenever it may be, I want to make sure that I still have a business. And I think, if you take what your most important things are and start writing them down, like, what do I got to do to make sure in 1 month I have a business, in 2 months I have a business, in 6 months I have a business. And then it's a little bit of survival mode. And you're going to have to make those tough decisions that we're going to probably start talking about with Wendy. But, do them with love and passion, and your employees, your customers, everyone's going to see that. So.
Awesome.
If I can jump in for just a second, there was a great question by Jeff about tips to help employees manage these times personally and ensure they come back once this passes. I think the number one thing here is communicating really clearly and openly with them that you want to have a place for them to work, you want them to have a job, but you have to preserve their job in the future. And just be clear with them about it. This is not a situation that you created or that you want to be in. And I think sitting down and having an honest heart-to-heart with them and just laying it all on the table will really serve you well here. You will see people's true character come out in this kind of crisis. And there are people in your shop now, I guarantee it, who really want to be there, want to stay there, want to be in their jobs, and just communicate that. And I think that's almost all you can do at this point, other than protecting your cash and your business. So I think that's a great question.
There's for teams or for people, I know Wendy can touch on this more too in a second. Obviously, unemployment insurance, they're saying will not be affected for, I believe it's the next 2 months for new claims on the business. So your unemployment insurance rate will not go up for the unfortunate circumstances of having to let people off. I'm seeing questions. I'll just address this directly about monthly fees for Printavo. We personally are seeing a kind of string of just wanting to put them on hold. We're kind of helping where we can. Feel free to be able to reach out to me so that we can help. We are also making some very extreme cuts to be able to help survive too, as the better you guys do, the better we do. The worse you guys do, the worse we do as well. So absolutely, reach out to me. We'd love to be able to help too. So with that said, let me add Wendy here. Going to invite Wendy to our call.
Just a quick intro to Wendy I think she has almost 30 years of HR experience, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's starting to connect here. Perfect. So Wendy Davids, she's an executive partner over at a company called Balanced HR Partners. I'll drop a link in the bottom here. She's someone that we rely on very heavily. Oh, perfect. Hey, Wendy, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Bruce?
All right, it worked. Wow.
Good.
I was expecting we'd have to do some crazy tech magic to try to get this thing to work. I was just introducing you. So Wendy's an executive partner over at Balanced HR Solutions. I just sent a link in the chat room as well. She has 18 years of just professional experience in the HR realm with small business, with very, very large business. She is all the HR certifications you could potentially think about. And so I reached out to her as she helps us quite often with any HR issues that we have, and just to be able to help offer advice. I mean, there's been a lot of questions as, small business owners, we just fall into a lot of this and continue growing, and then things happen. And so thanks for being able to join us today, Wendy.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I think, there's so much information out there right now about what should we do as businesses, as employees. And it's certainly an unprecedented time for all of us. Never would we have thought that all that would change like it has in the last just few days. I think it's fair to say that none of us were prepared. That's our biggest thing in HR is preparing employers and employees. And I don't think that anything we could have done could have really prepared us for this COVID-19 pandemic and what it's doing to businesses and employees. So my business partner and I, we've been very busy this week helping clients make some really tough decisions and keeping them aware of new legislation because there's a myriad of things that are going on with respect to changes to how employers do business. And we've been providing a lot of advice on how to manage those questions and specific situations also related to what do I do when I have an employee quarantined or tested positive, and how do I notify other employees and such. So the big questions that we're getting are furlough, our layoffs, our what is the new legislation? And so we can talk through those things today.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question just to kick it off. I mean, what's the difference between laying somebody off and putting them on furlough?
A layoff is typically a decision that's permanently or temporarily when you have one or more employees that stop working at your organization. So it's easy to understand how a lot of employers will always think a layoff, they're never going to work here again. But also furloughed employees, that can be a part of a layoff. Or some employers decide we're going to temporarily only take a group of employees or one employee, depending on the size of the organization, and not have them work for a period of time. They'll still be an employee of the organization, but we're not going to have them work right now because of whatever reason it may be. And in this case, it's mostly budget reasons and supply reasons and obviously a myriad of those reasons.
Gotcha. How does that work with them getting unemployment insurance, or how do they make money? So, because one of the big trends is that all of the shop owners care about their team, so it's just they can't pay them, but they're trying to say, how do they get paid to be able to take care of their family?
Well, unemployment typically before COVID-19 has been for people that no longer are employed. They are people that no longer have an employer, and therefore they get those unemployment benefits if they apply and qualify and continue to qualify. But the new legislation has expanded unemployment. And so laid off employees should definitely apply for unemployment, just like they would prior to this pandemic, by going on their state's website. And depending on what state the people that are watching are from, you would go on that website and you would apply for it. But the new legislation that was signed by Trump last night includes a lot of information related to greater access to unemployment insurance for employees who are off work for certain reasons, not all reasons, but certain reasons specific. And there's a whole list of them that you can certainly read in the act related to COVID-19 specifically, even if they're still employed. So somebody's off, for example, on in a quarantine or a furlough situation where they can't work for whatever reason it may be, but it's due to COVID, they may be eligible for unemployment even though they're still employed by the organization. They're just not getting paid.
Is that different than furlough, or is that part of this paid leave or paid sick leave?
Furlough is a furlough and a layoff are kind of a status of how you're treating an employee during a situation like this. So an unemployment is a benefit that an employee can get when they are in one of those two situations. So they're kind of different things. A furlough and the layoff are the status, and unemployment is one of the benefits that has now been expanded for COVID-19 related reasons.
Got it. So because of COVID-19, people are able to apply if they are sick for unemployment But is that like, what is the definition of sick as well? Is that, did they have to test positive, or is it just?
They don't. There's a whole section of the legislation. It's called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. It's HR 6201. And I won't go into a huge amount of detail on the bill, just because there are so many facets of this bill, depending on the size of your organization. Also, there's right now the bill is for employers with under 500 people working there. But there are extra provisions also for even less than that. So it's effective in most cases April 2nd, sometimes in some of the provisions April 6th for like paid sick time. And the paid sick time portion of it is in addition to the unemployment benefit, where the law allows for up to 2 weeks of paid leave to all employees for COVID-19 related matters.
Gotcha.
So that is for full-time, part-time, even if employees are not eligible for benefits under the employer's guise of, these are the people in my of my employees that are eligible for benefits. Even if they're not eligible that way, they are still eligible to receive the paid leave for COVID-related reasons. And again, the law is very specific about what is covered under that time. The law also includes an expansion for those employers that have 50 or more people. They fall under the Family Medical Leave Act. There's an expansion to that. There's certain tax credits available for employers detailed in the bill because they're going to be paying extra money for this paid sick time and expanded family medical leave. And obviously we talked about the greater access to unemployment insurance for those COVID-related issues. And also the bill also talks about how health insurance carriers will have COVID testing and diagnostic testing at no cost under their health plans. So it's a very, very large bill with a lot of details.
Sure.
And for the employers that are on this podcast, there is a part of it, because it's so new, the bill is less than 24 hours old. As part of the bill, there is a section, and I can read it to you. It's a section that includes a small business exemption. It says the U.S. Secretary of Labor has the authority to issue regulations exempting small businesses with fewer than 50 employees when the imposition of the requirements would jeopardize the viability of the business as a going concern. So the bill is so new, it's totally unclear to my sources, to whether they're attorneys or organizations that I'm part of, as to whether and when this type of exemption would even occur. So, and what would constitute a hardship. You know, none of those things have been worked out, but there may be provisions for those smaller employers that will be included, will roll out further along. But for right now, it's under 500 employees for the businesses.
Gotcha. Okay. Which is everybody, I'm sure, here is under that group. What do you see are common mistakes? Or are there things that if you do have to lay people off, to just be legally compliant, make sure you're doing it the right, best way?
That's a very good question, because I think a lot of organizations really don't know the answers of how do we manage this now that we think that we may need to have a layoff. And HR people like me tend to be overly thorough with how we help our clients manage a layoff process. It's obvious that a lot of the organizations on this call are probably immediately thinking, I need to lay a bunch of people off. This is huge to my bottom line, and I don't know how I'm going to manage with all of these employees. But there are, first, what I recommend for employers to do is consider other alternatives. There are other alternatives, and take some time to consider what they are. You know, is there job sharing attempts at your organization that you can say, okay, 2 people can job share this position, reducing somebody's hours instead of totally laying them off, finding other work for an employee within the company, cutting or limiting overtime if you're an organization that has a lot of OT, even training employees. If you're in one role and you're not trained in another role, and this other role is critical to the organization, can you train that other employee that you would otherwise let go into that other position. And it might take a little bit of time to train them and some expertise, but that avoids you having to lay them off. But if all those options are exhausted, an employer needs to first create a plan. And I always tell my clients, come up with a robust plan and have the appropriate people sitting at the table to come up with that plan. What's your budget? What was your budget for 2020? And how has that changed now? Given the uncertain times and the fact that we really, nobody knows how long this is going to last. Those are difficult forecasts to make, but get the right people at the table, because a layoff has such an impact on an organization, the morale of the employees, the organization in general, the customers. There's a big impact. So if there's a way to think of other alternatives, and then if you decide, yes, I have to do this, making that plan, because if you jump into a layoff without a plan, it could really lead to costly mistakes, poor implementation. I just talked about communication and morale issues, that it's already a stressful time. The last thing you want to do is add to that. So make sure there is a plan that the organization has. And then you decide, you might conclude after all of that, a layoff really does need to happen. The first thing that I suggest that an employer does, they need to make sure that they're in compliance with the WARN Act, which it sounds like people would be here, Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. Some of you may have heard of that. It's generally for employers with 100 or more employees, so it may not affect those on this call, but it involves appropriate notice that you must give for those larger organizations before you do a layoff. So you'd want to check there, and you'd also want to check, depending on what state you're in, there's additional requirements depending on where you are in the country, to check to make sure you're following all of those requirements before you do a layoff. The next step I recommend for an employer to do is figure out what's their selection criteria. What are you going to use as your selection criteria to lay somebody off? There's a lot of schools of thoughts. We don't have to go into all of those details. We work very closely with our clients on what that criteria is and what makes the most sense for them. But the rule of thumb is to go with the most objective criteria that you have, the better position that you will be in to defend a decision if you're challenged in court. So there's subjective and objective criteria, and it's much better to go with that objective approach. And there are obviously many methods to approach the decision, but once you've done that, you want to ensure that it's fair and equitable, that the reasons that you're using and the choices that you're making are fair and equitable. And some people have robust handbooks and policies that outline already, here's what our selection criteria is. Most of those companies are very large organizations that will very specifically detail, here's how we choose who's going to be laid off. Smaller organizations may not have that, and usually don't. So you'll want to come up with that and then be consistent with how you put that plan into action. An organization, once they make that decision, is also, I could talk for like 100 hours on this, but and another thing that, all of these things that are important to think about is that employee, maybe that employee is someone that their entire role is going away. There are some roles like that in the restaurant business, for example, that, the place is closed. They have absolutely no work for them to do. But there are other organizations that, most of the duties may be going away of the person that you're going to lay off, but they have other duties that they're doing that may still be part of the organization. So before you do that layoff, you want to consider what are those things that person is doing, so that they can be picked up immediately by somebody else, and you don't have any gaps in those processes within the organization.
Gotcha. With that said, because somebody asked a really good question, because that new bill just passed, is it best, if you need to make a cut, to do it now because it did pass and you'll get the tax credits? Or is that just for paid sick leave?
The tax credits, to my understanding with the bill, are not necessarily related specifically to laying somebody off. It's related to the unemployment insurance. What I would say is what organizations should do is not rush to make a decision to fall under the tax cut provision. It would make sense to have that plan. And depending on the organization, employers right now may know I absolutely have to lay somebody off. They may be iffy about it right now and think, okay, we can limp along for a little while. So I think that plan is important to have and not base the decision based on when they would be able to potentially have a tax cut based on unemployment insurance.
Got it. What about, and this may be more of a state-by-state question, but does unemployment assistance go into effect is it like under a certain amount of hours, or is it completely laid off? And then second part is that the insurance aspect, like health insurance, is that just paid through the month if they already paid for them? And then from there on, it's, they reach out to COBRA or one of the other open care plans?
For unemployment, if somebody's laid off, the employer, when they communicate with them, the layoff, they would let them know that they can apply for unemployment after they're laid off. They can apply for unemployment. There are certain cases where employees, if they're going to be quarantined or are off for whatever reason and are off for an extended period of time for a COVID-related reason, they should be encouraged regardless to apply for unemployment. The unemployment office is the one that makes the decision as to whether they are or not allowed unemployment. So they should apply. The unemployment office is well aware of what the new provisions are. And everything goes into effect in another 2 weeks because it's 2 weeks from when the bill passes. So they will, when they apply for unemployment, they put the reason why, they put the details why.
Gotcha.
And then the unemployment office makes that decision. With respect to health insurance, if somebody is laid off, their health insurance, depending on what your plan dictates, some organizations that have health insurance, the plan says if somebody terminates in the first 2 weeks of the month, their insurance ends on the 15th. If their insurance plan says if somebody terminates any time in the month, the end of the month is their last day of insurance. So you'd want to communicate that to the employee to let them know when their insurance is ending and that they will be sent the COBRA information to have extended benefits that they would pay typically at the full premium, because there's an employer premium, the big premium, and the employer usually pays for a portion and the employee pays for another portion. COBRA is the entire portion that the employee will then have to pay for if they're getting COBRA. Some organizations are putting some money toward the employee portion of COBRA because it becomes the entire premium, which is
Gotcha.
very, very costly. So some employers are saying, hey, we'll put a little bit of money toward that for laid off employees. It's not required, but some employers are doing that because of this situation.
Got it. And I believe this is state by state, but somebody had a question around PTO too. So if a PTO has been accrued, is that needing to be paid off or paid out if that's a law in the state, if they are laid off?
If in Illinois, where we are, I can't address all of the states because you're right, Bruce, they are all very different. In Illinois, for example, somebody if they have accrued vacation time, not sick time, but vacation or PTO. Some organizations have PTO, and that includes vacation and sick. Anything that's been accrued by the employee at the time of termination gets paid to them when they are terminated. So
Gotcha.
If you're an organization that has unlimited PTO, which means they don't accrue time, they just get time, the organization in Illinois would not need to pay any vacation time out because they don't have any vacation time to pay out. But some organizations accrue it based on how many hours you work, and that's how many vacation hours you have, while other employers say we drop in 2 weeks in January. Well, if the person terminates in February, they have to have that entire 2 weeks paid out to them upon termination.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I know we touched on a bit of helping, again, team members with being able to help, either find additional work or work, help them work with another company, or help them apply for unemployment insurance. Are there any things that you're seeing with your clients too that either may be common mistakes around this process, or just additional or clever things to help them? Because I know I said this before, but I get this a lot where, they have somebody that they really, really like, but they just can't afford to pay them.
Yeah, I think the best advice I can give for that is to get the right people at the table making those decisions. And, you certainly, as an organization, don't want to bring a bunch of employees into the room and say, we're going to talk about this. I'm talking more leadership employees, colleagues at other organizations, so that's like what you're doing today, Bruce, letting colleagues within an industry really talk about what can we do? Can you partner with another organization? Are you lacking in an area that another organization could help with? Can you job share, have employees job share? But having the right people before those decisions are made, because the worst thing is to make a decision, you act the decision and the person is, for example, let go. And then you think, oh man, I could have done this differently. I could have shared with this person. Somebody brought this great idea forward and I didn't have enough time to really think about it. So knee jerking at this point is not good. Marinate on it, as I tell people. Reach out to your colleagues. Go on LinkedIn and see what other people are doing in your industry, and really, really think about some of the other alternatives you could do before making that drastic decision of laying somebody off. And then, there's a lot of steps with regard, and I can hit some of them if you'd like, with respect to when you lay somebody off, the right way to do it, and what not to do when you specifically have those discussions.
I think my last big question here is, because the environment is changing so quickly, it feels like every day, the next bill, the rumor is people have been talking about no payroll tax. Have you been seeing that, or is that just rumors? Or
I have heard that swirling about, until there's something passed and put out there. I don't want to speculate. When the House passed this legislation that I was just talking about with paid sick leave and unemployment insurance and family medical leave and such, it was passed, and I reviewed the law. I was a big nerd and read the whole thing, all the provisions of it. And then it went to the Senate. And then there were more revisions made and changes, and then it went back, and then it went for signature. And so I think the process is so lengthy, but they're really moving it rather quickly compared to the rest of the employment laws that have taken years and years and years to get through. Your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, gotcha. Wendy, I really appreciate it. This is Wendy Davids. I'm going to again link BHRS partners down below here. Balance HR Solutions, they're really, really great. Again, we work with them on HR assistance as well. So Wendy and her team are awesome. Thank you so much for being able to spend some time with us.
Thank you, Bruce. And good luck to everybody. I know it's really a challenging time for all of us, and it's very unknown landscape that we have ahead of us. And the more you can reach out to each other, the more you can have compassion for each other and your employees right now in such an uncertain time, and be real cognizant of some of the things that are said in the office, and how you manage those discussions when you do, if you do have to lay somebody off, it is really, really important. So, we can certainly help you with some of those things. If you want to, engage with our firm, we'd be, happy to assist you through all of this very difficult time.
Awesome. Thank you again. She's at bhrspartners.com. You contact us, then you can be able to reach out for advanced help, as there's so many HR questions that really require a professional to be able to dive into. So we posted that at bhrspartners.com. Thank you again.
Thank you, Bruce. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
All right, guys. So hopefully that was very helpful. Next, we're going to add a couple more shops in who are doing some more unique things and just get their perspective, their take on what's been going on. We've got, obviously, Stephen Farag back over at Campus Inc. We are having Max Hellmann over at Family Industries. He's over in Los Angeles. And then we are adding Justin Lawrence over in Oklahoma City. Just sent him an invite as well. So he can, he's joining perfectly. So I'm going to go around. I've got a couple questions I want to poke you that I've been collecting from everybody. I guess we'll start off with you, Justin. Tell us, what are your thoughts? I know things have been really, really difficult, but, what are your thoughts around everything going on right now? How are you dealing with it?
One cold pop at a time. That's first. So raise a glass. That's the first part of being self-employed. I don't know, man. I'm trying to. There's perks of, I would say, to take advantage geographically. Where you are. Thankfully, in Oklahoma, we're probably going to be last in line to see a lot of things roll out unless our president, declares a national emergency and shuts everybody down. But until then, I'm trying to communicate openly and transparently with my team. I'm trying to let them know that, hey guys, I'm scared, I'm uncertain, and I'm doing everything that I can to support you guys and fight for you guys. We had to make some hard decisions, which we can get into later. But I'm trying to just be here and trying to remind my team that I'm with them. And I don't know how we're going to look at the end of this, but we're gonna stay together while we do it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty there. Max at Family, you guys do what? Half live printing, half custom printing. You guys run a pretty big business there too. Live printing, that's an interesting space, especially right now.
Don't get into it right this second. Yeah, don't get into it. Just if you're gonna do it, set it up, but don't get into it. We saw inklings of the slowdown probably about 4 weeks ago. It started certain events still went. We had some up until this last weekend, but we had cancellations come in pretty much every day. I think we had something like 30 overall. Some postponements, things like that, and it definitely hit us. So it was one of those things where we had to really evaluate how we were going to move forward with everything. Especially in-house too, because we do a lot of event printing in-house as well. So the same thing happened where with Justin, we had to kind of evaluate our structure going forward and, save our cash flow for the long run, like you guys have already been talking about. So, we had to let some people go, and it was really, really hard.
Your next 30 days, you talk about the strategy that you're trying to take, Max, with you. What do you think the plan lays out? What are you watching for? What are you trying to do? What are you spending your time on?
So we cut back our staff quite a bit. Our plan is to listen to what California has to say. I'm anticipating that LA is going to do kind of a shutdown. Orange County just did, and Palm Springs just did. I think it's going to come at some point soon. But until then, we're kind of just taking things easy. We have our new facility that we want to move everything over to. That was originally supposed to happen by the end of the month. So we're going to kind of take it a little bit more slowly on that side and try to get over here when we can, clean up our old shop, but it's an ethical thing. How long do we let our employees work while this all goes on? I feel it's really tough.
You actually brought that up too, Justin, the ethical conversation of it, of keeping the people there when the news is telling everybody to stay at home. How do you evaluate that?
It's hard because, on one hand, I have, we have real data that's coming out, albeit right or wrong, saying how many cases are in Oklahoma. And I know that, the responsible thing for us to do is to social distance and to not put our employees at risk. And then you juxtapose that with, hey, you don't have any symptoms. Hey, you don't live with anybody who's immunocompromised. Hey, you want to work and you're willing. We had a cool, so at the beginning of this week, we sent our sales team and our art team home. Anybody that could work from home, do that. And I feel like to all of you, no matter what size shop you are, if you haven't made at least that concession yet, you have to start making concessions. The sooner you make concessions, for us, we had a round of layoffs yesterday. we made those concessions early because I thought that it would be merciful for those people to go, be able to go draw unemployment benefits. And the sooner that you're able to begin making concessions for your business, depending on where you are at risk-wise, you need to do that. I don't have the liberty of just closing the doors, like that. I would love to, I'm aggressively seeking money, so that I can do that for my team. I would love to shut the doors and say, hey guys, I'll see you in 3 weeks. Everyone's getting paid. And then we come back. But that, I don't think that that's going to happen. So we're just trying to responsibly navigate this. And it's kind of a waiting game. I'm either the work will dry up completely and I have some of my team that's on this stream right now. So I really want to be measured and careful with this, but, they're laughing at me. I want to make sure that, if we do have to shut down, that we can maintain and work is drying up. We had a 3-week window where we were booked pretty solid, 2.5, 3 weeks. And our work takes about 1.5 weeks to 2 to fill that pipeline. And so we've already noticed that drying up. And there will come a point where the government either says, hey, you guys have to shut down, or everyone will get so sick that we can't work, or there won't be any work, and I'll just have to tell people like I'm really, really sorry. I'm just trying to be really measured and making sure that, looking at layoffs versus furloughs, team, I want to hold on to as much of my team as possible, because while there's some positions in our organization that are pretty simple to replace, there's some that might be easy to lay off today, but impossible to replace tomorrow. Ethically, I have a personal assistant. It makes it, and Tess is watching this right now, and she has to be thinking the same thing. Like, it makes a lot of sense that that's one of the first positions that I should lay off, because like I've been telling my team, like, hey, we're going to go back in time, right? We're going to go 3 years back in time. We're going to scale back and we evaluate. And I didn't need an assistant 3 years ago. But the challenging piece with that is the chemistry and the like how such a good fit she is for that position. If I were to lay her off today, she would be impossible to hire in 30 days, right? So you have to evaluate like your especially like upper leadership or your ride or dies or people that are with you. So I think some layoffs or furloughs can be pretty like, hey, this is what we're doing as a team, and then some you have to be very, very strategic with.
I think the other thing that we've started to do was, like, how do you start to decide who to cut? And I actually asked for volunteers first, and I said, hey, like, we're a family, we live with, we're around each other all the time. If you feel like you could stay home, we'll figure out something for you on the back half of this. And believe it or not, I got more team players to come and say, look, I'm okay. I'm not going to go hungry or broke. Like, I can last for a little bit of time. And, let this person work because they need it a little bit more than me. And that was, like, I've never had to ask my employees who doesn't want to get paid right now. But what we're finding is, like, the people that go home, they're just hanging out at home, so it wouldn't be crazy to ask for volunteers. Or, I'm thinking about a delayed bonus with them. If, for every week they take off unpaid, on the back half, I'll get them a couple days of paid vacation or something like that. But we've been seeing that our team is more like subservient and like trying to actually help each other. But I think what I learned from Justin was communicating with your team openly, honestly, regularly, and not keeping them in the dark.
And early.
And having conversations with individuals. And, I talked to a couple of my employees and I said, like, if you're willing to share, what's your financial situation? So I know, because like, we're a family and I want to make sure that we are together through this as much as we possibly can. And my business partner, who is twice my age, has said, like, if it worst comes to worst, my home is open to some of you. And that's crazy. But, as I've heard from elders, we're going to make it, we're going to rejoice 10x, whatever that is, but we just have to get through it. And asking your team for help does not make you a bad boss, does not make you a bad boss whatsoever.
Did any of you guys have to take into consideration people who have kids? Because right now in LA, every single school is closed, daycares are closed. I have kids, my business partner has kids, we have a few staff who have kids, and I know that's something that's going to be really, really hard. We just got the notice that schools were going to be closed until June, so nobody's even going to be going back to school. So it's like one partner is going to have to stay home. What are we going to do for daycare or school? So I know that's something else that we had to take into consideration. Healthcare, whatever it is, there's so many things that I think we as business owners have to take into consideration when you talk to the staff and be upfront and honest with them, and how you kind of go through who stays and who may have to go. It's so hard. It's the hardest thing that we've had to do as a business, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys as well.
I think one of the eye-opening things, to echo a little bit of what Matt said, is like, I had to decide about a week ago, and I haven't done this fully, but I'm having to swallow pride. And that's a hard thing for me. Like, it's a hard thing, especially when you built something that you take pride in, that like the community comes around and high fives you all the time. You win awards and you get to do shit. Like, at some point you have, I think the more, and I'll speak this to all of you as leaders, like the more vulnerable you can be early, and you can show your team that you're confused and you're scared and you don't know what to do. I think that letting them in, showing them that you're suffering. So I lay off 8 or 7 people. And I also said, like, I'm not going to pay myself for 2 months. Right now, what that means to everybody as a business owner is a very different thing. But I know that, like, ethically and like integrity, and so I could kind of sleep at night, or try, that's a concession that I make. And so I think it's important as you lead, like we've heard all of these things growing up, like, lead by example and make sure you're on the front lines with your people. Like, you need to do that. You need to think about, like, if you're going to ask your production team to work, then you need to be at your business. You need to be with your crew. You need to be encouraging them. They need their leader, their captain, their whatever you want to call them. But you have to, this is going to hurt all of us. And shame on you, Mr. Business Owner or Mrs. Business Owner, if you're not making personal concessions first. I'm sure most of you are, because we're all like cut from the same cloth and we all care about people. But just make sure that you're swallowing your pride and you're doing everything that you can to sacrifice for your team. Steven just said he's out. I guess he couldn't. He's gone.
Couldn't make a session.
Hey guys, I'm sorry.
No, that's a really good point. Max, you brought that question up, which I think is something that a lot of folks have too. I guess, how did you you don't have to go into too much detail, but like, how did you evaluate that?
We had meetings,
process? Lots
of meetings. We talked to, the managers in the shop to see what we can do to make a buy. And it's not easy. We put our staff on unemployment because we know that they're paying into that. So the staff, that we knew that's going to be the best bet for them moving forward to make the money that they need to make. Because in California right now, there's reduced hour pay and there's also unemployment pay. So by putting them on that, as soon as we figured it out, we gave them the notice to file that, and it's going to be a shorter turnaround time. So either way, whoever we decided on, it was just something we had to go through one by one and say, this, we can do this person has to stay. There's a little bit of seniority that goes into it too. People have been with the company. It's weird because I'm sure a lot of you guys have started your businesses during the first recession, and I know a lot of people were there 2007, 2008, 2009, and we were all smaller businesses then. So now we're at a completely different point in time, where before you were a little bit smaller. Now you may have more employees, and you have to navigate this in a completely different way than when you're a small company, when you only had to worry about 1 or 2 people. There's no right answer here. It's kept me up at night. It's kept my business partner Alex up at night. It's kept other people up at night, and you feel that hole, that pit in your stomach that you just feel it dropping constantly. Ever since this has happened, like, I think all of us are kind of on the same page, where it's just like, it's a bad dream. You wake up and you're like, man, what the hell is going on?
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Steven, when you were evaluating, you had to also go through a couple tough aspects. How did you evaluate those pieces too, like Max brought up, or roles that were more crucial? Was it thinking about, okay, when we were small, here's how we have to get down to? Or,
Yeah,
I know
I mean,
artwork has been a big thing that you've done with Graphic Source too.
right. Like we outsourced our art department, and that's helped us a little bit and stuff. But more importantly, like cutting out all extra costs. We basically are like, okay, what runs our company? Printavo runs our company, so we can't get rid of that. But really, it was like, our email campaign tool. I spent a pretty penny on like a really nice tool, and I was like, let me just suspend that for a month. And I kind of went down the line and was like, essentials, non-essentials. I think I splurge on some things, and I kind of went through and I was like, okay, I can cut that. Okay, I can cut that. Okay, I can cut that. I went through every like credit card and figured out anything I was subscribed to and just started kind of axing them because they do add up. And if that's like one more employee I can keep, for me not to have, the coolest Shopify app for a month, that's okay. But then the other thing I did is after whittling that all down, I basically made a number that was like, here's what my business costs every day to stay afloat with zero revenue. And that's what I'm just going to be kind of burning like an ante into the pot. And I need that burn to be as slow as possible. Let's take it over 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And let's like figure out what that number is. Because when, we were at 2 Auto Shop, we've got like 15 employees. Your burn is pretty high every day. It could be anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a day just to stay open. And so I'm like, what do I need to bring that down to $300 a day? That's kind of what I've been doing every day. And it's sad. It sucks. But when we come back, I'm going to be so much more frugal. I'm going to be so much smarter because I'm just seeing this all because it's like a forced hand a little bit. I'm sure, Justin, you've been doing that too. And, because we have some fun. We try to run fun businesses. We try to splurge a little bit. We all like to. And I think the industry, everything was riding super high. So, I look at it as a little bit of a course correction and a lesson rather than, the world ending, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate that, guys. As we come towards the end here, any last thoughts, Max, on your end? Well, I guess we'll go around to everybody if they have any last thoughts. Just it could be anything business related, personal related, anything to share that you found to help, things like that.
I mean, just it's things like this. We've reached out to a ton of other shop owners and just kind of checked in with them and see how they're doing across the board and think of ways that you can maybe collaborate if that's possible. I don't know how that looks or how that works. Really keep an eye on your cash flow. It like Stephen was just saying, like if you are able to find out what your expenses are per month and maybe take some of those off the books and minimize it during this time, because we don't know how long this is going to go. So you want to make sure that you have enough to run for a bit of time. And then, it's the ethical thing. Just keep up with what's going on. And, if people need to go home and they need to stay in for 2 weeks, don't fight it. Just, we all gotta be in this together. I think that's all it comes down to. I just saw an article that a 34-year-old passed away in Glendora, which is about 20 miles from where we are. He was in Disney World and he came back. So it's like, we're not immune to the coronavirus. Some people may get it, you may not get it, but just be careful. Be careful out there in general.
Yeah, I think I'd say like support one another in our industry. If we all go and ask Bruce for free Printavo, well, you guys aren't going to have a company anymore to support us. And I'm serious, like as blunt as I can possibly be. I'll cancel something outside of our industry before inside. I got my Oklahoma shirt company lucky shirt right there. Don't cancel it. I can't cancel it. But seriously, if my business shuts down for a month and I'm able to shut my doors, I might get a job and contract it out to Justin if I know his shop is open, because that can help him out if we're good. So those smaller shops out there that are able to kind of shut their doors, it's okay to job a couple jobs out and send them to some bigger contract shops because we do rely on them. And like they're hurting, they could be hurting even worse than us when we only have a couple employees. So that's not a crazy thing to do is to close down for a little bit and sub out your jobs. Mike Chong can give you a lesson about that if you need it. But we should support one another completely during this time. And if that means, one of my employees could go help another shop out, so be it. Do the right thing and things will be okay. So, Justin, closing words.
I have 4 quick things. First of all, it's your responsibility as a business owner and as a leader to communicate to your team what's going on. There's a good amount of people that work for me that I think they just come to work, they put their heads down, they do it, but they're not aware of how dire the things are outside of this place. So make sure that you're telling your team to prepare and to protect their family and to fend for themselves and to get ready. Because you know what, if this doesn't get as big as everyone thinks that it is, then awesome. But if it does, you sure would want your team to be prepared. I believe that's your responsibility as a leader and as a business owner. I also want to encourage you, lean into your team locally, because at the end of this, whoever you're able to navigate through with them, man, you're going to come through so much stronger. I've been so impressed by my team, even the people that I had to lay off. I was getting messages still today, you're the best boss we've ever had. We get it. We understand. Don't miss out on the community and the strength that you have in the people that already are your ride or dies. I would say to all of you, lean into the network, lean into these people. There's 514 people that are watching this right now. And they're people who give a damn, and they're people who make, and they're people who are entrepreneurs. And so make sure that you don't just sit back idly. It's what I want to do. I'll confess, as a business owner, I want to shut my door. I want to not get out of bed. I want to just shut the world out. But that's what we can't do. And we have to show up for one another. And then lastly, the coolest thing we can do right now is most of us, if not all of us, are artists. So, the world is looking to us right now. So sing, paint, create, make, get out, live your life, and take what you do and put it on this platform that we all have such easy access to. And because we can support each other, and damn it, man, everybody needs a little bit of extra joy and love and just art and goodness in their lives right now. So please do that. If you're scared to paint, who cares, man? Just do it and put it on Instagram Live and paint something. It's just, there's so much we can do to brighten each other's day. And Bruce, thank you for leveraging your resources. If any of you can't afford your Printavo subscription for a month or 2, please don't ask him. Call me, ask me. I'll pay your subscription. Because without those fees to support Printavo, then we can't do shit like this. There's not one champion in this industry right now that's doing as much for us as the collective small team that Bruce has put together. And we can't work without you. I know Max and Steven can't work without you. So thank you for what you're doing, Bruce. And man, I can't say thanks enough. Your whole team.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I know
thanks to Luke too for that blog. I think everybody's going to take
crushed
that.
it.
Yes.
Luke, you're
really
use that information. It's incredible. So just every resource.
Put ISS Long Beach on the map for 2021. Justin will work on a new Mark McGrath, Sublime, and we'll have some fun. Thanks, everybody.
You guys. Thank you guys so much for joining. Really, really appreciate it. We're going to revise and see if there's any updates to put together for next week. Thank you guys for joining us, Justin, Max, and Steven. It's been awesome.
Cheers, guys.
And for the tips. Everybody who's joined, 500 plus, that's been absolutely incredible. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to keep updating that document that Luke put together as a survival guide, as so many things change daily. So that's going to be a living document. Really, really appreciate it. We will put this recorded video up on YouTube. Start uploading it now. So again, thank you guys. We're going to make it through. We're going to do this together.